Hello everybody, it's me Remo doing a PTR feedback round, another one. It was on Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Monday, right? Where surprisingly a new PTR version dropped on the BattleNet launcher. PTR version 2.0.3. 2.0.1 and 2.0.2 were some balance changes. Now, Blizzard, while there are also some balance changes involved, the focus of this patch seems to be less on balance, with fewer changes there, but a lot of general changes, a lot of quality of life changes that we're going to get into. And Blizzard is always looking, by the way, in case you guys don't know how this works, Blizzard normally proposes changes on the PTR and then listens to feedback from the community to see what it wants to stick with and what perhaps it wants to adjust. So yeah, let's get into it. And I'm going to give my feedback here accordingly to what is proposed. And by the way, also you guys can all do this on Reddit, in the YouTube comments. Blizzard is trying to listen to what the community is putting out there. Okay, so let's get things started. So general, added a countdown timer to the UI for construction and training. This is really cool. So now you can see exactly how many seconds it takes for units to finish. Fix an issue where map music would sometimes continue playing. Okay, that's a couple of bug fixes in here as well. Fix an issue where some triggers would sometimes not be saved correctly. I don't know exactly what this would be pertaining to, but it's nice to see these bug fixes, performance, optimized AI functions, optimized heavy particle counts. So lots of fixes, lots of little improvements. That's great to see. Visuals. Updated Reforged shaders. Players should see improved intensity of shadows and lighting, added options for ambient occlusion. Lots of little improvements here, as you can see. Fixed an issue where with transparency were less transparent intended, blah, blah, blah. Fixed an issue where custom portraits, an issue with icons, an issue with units would sometimes be invisible. That's certainly a good bug fix as well. World editor. I'm not going to go through all of this. Maybe there's some hardcore modders, world editor guys that are going to read through all these little changes, and maybe there's some relevant details in here. I am not very familiar with world editor, so I'm going to bracket all of this out. Hotkeys. Now, this is really cool. New hotkey functionality being implemented significantly increased the amount of bindable keys. If you saw the video with Neo already, he showed that, for example, the hero selection you can change now with the F keys. And at long last, finally, we also have customizable inventory. For the longest time, that wasn't doable. You had to use third-party software, but now in-game we can customize the hotkeys as well of the inventory. As Neo also pointed out, you cannot do a button combo. For example, in other games like Dota and many others, you can do a button combo of something like Alt-S or Shift-T or whatever to activate that item in the inventory or whatever hotkey you might want. That doesn't seem to work, unfortunately. I think that would be really cool if Alt and Shift commands also would work. Added support for non-QWERTY. Added conflict display as well. This is all cool. This is all great. As you can see, though, I'm going through this pretty quickly. I feel like this has been talked about a lot already. In case you didn't guess it yet, I'm going to be focused mainly on balance and what additional balance suggestions I would make. We have a lot of functionality here. Exclamation mark denying icon can be disabled as well. Hotkeys, yeah, I went through this already. Multiplayer. Fix an issue with a ranged team, badges not displaying. All right, nice. That's a nice little fix here as well. Fix issue with MMR and level not being displayed on loading screen. They're not saying they fixed the issue where MMR sometimes doesn't count, right? Because as far as I know, on BattleNet still, sometimes losses don't contribute, or wins rather, don't contribute anything to your MMR. Adjustments were made to how MR gains and losses are calculated. Okay. Balance. Okay. This is where things get serious. This is where I get involved. The other stuff is quite nice, but I feel like there's not so much feedback I can give on this. I think on balance is more where I'm going to be chiming in. All weapon ground effects, area of effect, have the ward unit type added to their list of area of effect targets. So this basically means ground attack from siege units can also kill wards. Orc Pulverize can also target wards. Burning Oil can now also target wards. Of course, wards were made magic immune just recently. Now there's more ways to destroy them with AOE abilities. That makes sense. I feel like gameplay-wise, that also is a nice little addition to the toolkit of what AOE siege weapons can do. I like this. This is great. I think this is also really cool. Pick up Archer, mount Hippogryph, so the abilities for archers and hippos to mount and dismount reduce the cooldown drastically from 30 seconds to 5 seconds. So now archers and hippos can mount and dismount very frequently, not without limit, not all the time, endlessly. It's still a 5-second cooldown, but yeah, this is a big decrease in time, and this might open up some more plays with archer hippos. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is really cool. I don't think there's a balance concern here either, in that it can be too strong. It's hard to imagine that, thinking about the fact that hippo riders are very bad in the game, and nobody ever plays them. So if this leads to some hippo riders being playable, that would be cool. Next change, also really cool. Units resurrected by Raised Dead now have access to their abilities they had when they were alive. This was always really frustrating when you used the Death Knight ultimate, Raised Dead, probably the worst ult in the game, and then you fight against an idol, for example, and there's dead dryads and bears on the ground, and then you resurrect the bears, but the bears are in adept form. They have no abilities they can use, so they're just little adept bears that don't have much HP and don't do any real damage, and you have dryads without dryad poison, so also those are doing almost nothing. Now they're going to have their abilities. This is going to make the DK ult a lot better. Is it going to be a decent ult now? I'm not sure. I would still really like it if the DK summons also had more armor, especially when they didn't have abilities before. If they at least had more armor, they would be able to tank more, because you guys may not be aware of this, but a couple of patches ago, it was made so that the DK ult, the summons, are not invulnerable anymore, but they can be attacked so that they can soak up damage from an enemy army. Maybe if they had more armor, say like 10 armor, for example, in every summon, and abilities, that might be too strong. This is a cool direction, though. I wonder how relevant this is going to be. Normally, we never see Death Knight ultimate. Maybe here with that, we will see it a bit. And the Lich Frost Nova range increased. They went from 800 to 700. Now apparently they, or some people in the community, feel that that was too low, and we are back to 750, or we're now at 750. Yeah. The range increase on Nova was sometimes noticeable, but not always. This is fine. It's not a big change. It doesn't move the needle much. All right, Pitlord Cleave can now attack wards, so this follows in the same footsteps as the other AOE abilities, also targeting wards. If wards ever were a problem, one would think that Pitlord actually would be a great counter to it. Can kill many wards at the same time, especially heal wards. Dark Ranger, drain life mana cost decreased. Oh, I totally read over this point. Oh, I didn't realize this was actually a change suggested. So now it's very, very cheap in mana. Okay, that's pretty cool. It still, though, seems like the Dark Ranger, the life drain damage being low is the bigger problem. Drain life self-damage type changed from magic to universal. This allows life drain to continue to transfer while the caster is magic immune. I was reading this. I didn't read over this point. And I was wondering, wait. Whenever is the Dark Ranger turning magic immune? This will allow the life drain to continue to transfer while the caster is magic immune. How is she going to turn magic immune? Does she have like a BKB or something? I can think of no instance where this would be the case. How does she turn magic immune? Well, maybe the YouTube comments can tell me. I'm sure there's some way that that can be achieved somehow. Necklace of Spell Immunity, I guess, but we don't have that in the real game. Okay, Tinker, Pocket Factory, Spawn Interval decreased from these numbers to these numbers. This is relevant only on level 1 and 2. This means the Clockworks will spawn faster. That's good. Tinker is a garbage hero that is played nowhere. You only ever play Tinker if you really need cluster rockets, especially against air units. But We almost never ever see him. Pocket Factory has become completely useless. So yeah, Tinker needs some big buffs. And speaking of which, Cluster Rockets also damage increased by quite a bit. That's the max damage per interval. It's mainly on level 1. Level 1 it goes up a lot. Level 2 it's still a decent increase. And level 3 it's still the same. Breath of Fire. Okay, so far, up until here, I like all these changes. I think this is all a great idea. But here, this one, when we read the changes first, we were like, wait a minute. They're buffing Breath of Fire heavily? Big damage increase here. Damage increase here as well. And a bit of a max damage increase here. Okay, serious buff to the Panda. What's going on? And then we read this. Area of effect decreased from 125 to 25, 300 to 125. And then they explain their rationale does make sense. They say, previously, Breath of Fire could hit units that were significantly farther away than the visuals of the spell suggested. These changes make it so that the area of effect are brought in line with the visuals. The area of effect parameter controls the initial width of Breath of Fire, while the final area of effect controls the radius at the tail end of the spell. To compensate for the nerf of range, overall damage of the spell has been increased. So, less width, less range, way less AoE on the Panda Breath of Fire. Now, you might be wondering, okay, how much less AoE is it? And this was shocking. Didn't take long for Reddit to find the answer. We have a picture that perfectly visualizes it. This was the old Breath of Fire. This is the new Breath of Fire. What? That's like half the AoE. The big strength of Breath of Fire is that it's a big AoE that can hit many targets. Now, it's just a short range cone. And like I said, I agree the rationale by Blizzard. It is stupid that the visual effects don't match onto the actual effect of the spell that is actually the case in-game. True, it's not good. But then you go the other way. You should make our Breath of Fire, the range and damage that we're used to, you should make that Breath of Fire visual bigger. Also, by the way, this would be way cooler for game feel. Imagine if you do a big Breath of Fire that does lots of damage everywhere, but it's actually a huge Breath of Fire. Then when you use it, it feels like a really cool, impactful spell, as it could be, as it should be. Thank you, Alpha Machine, for the resub. But look at this difference! I don't know if the numbers are exactly right. I didn't crunch the math, but I read a comment that it's 56% less AoE. That's crazy. Now, in theory, it could do more damage if everything is giga stacked up. As they say here, it has increased damage values, and like per target hit, max per target hit, but also max damage cap. Most AoE spells in Warcraft 3 have a damage cap, also Breath of Fire. But for that to be the case, it would have to be a crazy, crazy clump. The best thing about the Panda is that you can hit units somewhat further away. Also, at the moment, we're seeing almost no Panda play. We're seeing a bit of Panda play right now against Paddy Rifles. Paddy Rifles always tries to run away from the Panda, kite away, get out of Breath of Fire range, but sometimes they still get hurt. With this range decrease, they're never going to take any damage. This is wild, Blizzard. Like, this is going to make the Panda giga trashed here. Panda is already not a very good hero. He's like, okay. He's alright. But he's outperformed by many other heroes. This is going to make him so bad. Now, of course, fixing this visual issue this way is a lot easier, I imagine, than fixing it the other way. But the other way will be way better. Don't decrease the area that the damage is dealt in. Increase the size of the visual of the Breath of Fire. And then, like I said, we're going to have a cool-looking Breath of Fire that's going to be very fun to use as well. But, like, not only is this going to make the Panda way worse, it also feels so bad. You play the Panda, you use Breath of Fire, and it feels like this is the most laughable, tiny AoE of all time. Like, the old AoE felt like a 20 gigaton bomb dropping on the enemy army, doing so much damage. The new AoE is like a little water gun, doing a little bit of damage in front of him with a tiny AoE. This is so terrible. This is so terrible. This is going to make the Panda so bad, and it feels so awful as well. Like, I really hope they don't go through with this change. This is gonna make Panda so bad. So terrible. I don't know what the numbers, like, if they're not gonna change this, if they're not gonna make the visuals bigger of our old real Breath of Fire, and if they actually decrease the AoE so much of the Breath of Fire as they suggested here, then these numbers have to be way higher. Like, a little damage increase of 15 here, and 5 damage increase on level 2 Breath of Fire, and 100 on max damage. Are you kidding me, Blizzard? This is ridiculous. Panda is gonna be the biggest joke in the entire lineup of heroes, and we already have a bunch of jokes. So this is by far the worst change. The only really bad change in the entire patch. But yeah, this is gonna bury the Panda forever if this goes through. Okay, that's enough venting and ranting from me. But yeah, this Panda change is absolutely horrid. Next up, we're almost done. A creep was changed. Apparently this creep was weird on Tidehunters. I never saw this happen, weirdly. But yeah, this is going to be fixed. And then bug fixes with the Tinker, stacking effective regen. I am very familiar with this from Direct Strike. When Tinker died with Rings of Regen in Robo form, they would keep stacking in effect. Now they're going to fix that. That's cool, actually. I wonder if they heard about this from Direct Strike. I'm not sure. And fix an immolation where Demon Hunter immolation would continue to drain mana when turned off if immolation is leveled during Hex. Oh yeah. And there's also the Orb Silence thing. Orb effects will now properly proc when units auto-acquire targets. No, wait, it's this one. Orb Slow and Orb of Lightning will now properly function properly if bought while silenced. Yeah, that was funny. When the blade got silenced and then he bought Orb of Lightning, he would never proc the Purge. Units that are hexed will no longer have a shorter window where their items bonuses do not apply to them. I didn't even know this was a thing, but good that it was fixed. I wonder how they got aware of all these bugs. From the community? Or internally from testing? Probably from like forum feedback and so on. Okay, so all in all, really good changes, I think, except for the Panda. That one is dreadful. Like I said, I think we should just fit the visuals to actually be corresponding to the damage AoE, the area of effect that the damage actually is applied in. And then we have a cool big Breath of Fire that also doesn't ruin the playfeel. Like, not only is this going to make the Panda so bad, but also, we as Warcraft players, we have years, decades of experience of how far exactly the Breath of Fire goes. And now, the size is going to be more than halved. It's going to feel so bad. It's going to be so bad. Blizzard, don't do this. As you've probably seen already from Neo and Grubby, we have a lot of new options. This is all really cool. Hotkeys especially, we have a lot of new things. General, the mousepad, the inventory, I talked about that a little bit earlier already. The one thing I didn't see is the middle mouse button for camera pan. Is that somewhere in here where I didn't see it? It used to be the default setting on the Warcraft we've known for many years that the middle mouse button could pan the camera. This test arena, by the way, is really useful for testing many things. You can make units, you can make them fight against each other. I linked it in the Discord already if you want to have that map for yourself. There's two ways of moving the camera. One is to go to the edges of the screen, right? But also, in the current game, if you do middle mouse button and you click it, then you can you can pan the camera. You can pan it around. And this doesn't work anymore. There's no middle mouse button. I looked for it in the settings, but I can't find it. And that's very annoying, honestly. Like, we need to have this camera pan somewhere. Maybe you guys can tell me if I just didn't see it, but I don't think it is there anymore. So I hope they're going to reintroduce that as well. I'm just going to point out some minor things here. Crypt, also, visually, something buggy going on here. The particle effects here are not quite correct. I noticed this, so this is probably something that they want to be fixing. Also, you know what would be super cool? This would be an amazing feature, actually. This would be so fun for everyone. You know how we have these hero cards here? The triple heroes? What would be amazing, and I don't know if this is feasible with a game code, But these hero cards here, if we could drag and drop, swap them around. Like if I wanted my DK to be my first hero, my F1 hero, I could pick it up here, put it up there, and boom, now I have DK on F1. That would be so sick. Or if the Crypt Lord was supposed to be the third hero, I drag him here, I put him here, and boom, and the other cards position themselves around it. That would be such a nice feature to have. Everyone knows that feeling. You play your usual first hero, but then as a second hero, you make your third hero, and then as your third hero, you make your usual second hero, and then you mix up the F keys. Oh, it has happened to so many of us. And that feature could change that. That would be very, very welcome. Oh, yeah, one more thing. The visuals. So I'm a big fan of ClassicHD. Wait, let me actually exit out of the game. I think the ClassicHD graphics look really cool, but there's one thing that's a bit of a shame. So, you guys are familiar with the screen, I imagine. You can, when you activate Reforged here, you can go between Reforged and ClassicHD, Reforged and ClassicHD. I like everything way better in ClassicHD. It's a personal choice, of course. The issue with this is, I asked the War 3 Champions guys, why does ClassicHD not work on War 3 Champions? And they told me, well, the problem is that these settings are not saved in offline mode. These settings are loaded up and booted, I suppose, when you go in online mode. But War 3 Champions starts the game from offline mode. So if these settings could be saved and allowed for in offline mode, that would be so sick. Then we could have them also in War 3 Champions. I know for the Blizzard guys, it's weird. They don't want to cater to War 3 Champions because technically it's like a third-party weird software that's not part of their official game. But it is where the action happens for the Warcraft player base, the fan base. And if you want to be, you know, a force for good for the Warcraft player base, having this saved in offline mode and having it enabled that way in War 3 Champions would be truly wonderful. And now I have just tiny points for balance. I'm almost done here. I think another concern is that first heroes at the moment only seem to be playable as the Ultra heroes. The Ultra heroes just simply seem to outscale the Tavern heroes every time. Archmage is always better than a Tinker. Blade Master is always better than a Naga. Death Knight is always better than a Pitlord. It seems like, you know, it's almost impossible to pick a Tavern hero first these days. And it's even hard to pick him as a second hero. Or a third hero. I guess third hero, actually, we see it a fair amount. I take that back. But especially as a first hero, Tavern heroes seem to be almost unpickable. So I think it would make sense to decrease the countdown timer, the cooldown timer, on Tavern first heroes. If all the Tavern first heroes became available 5 seconds earlier at the Tavern, I think that might help make them more viable as a different choice. And lastly, and I'm sure this is not going to be included in this patch because the focus of balance isn't that, but I'm still going to keep harping on about it. I would still love to see if expansions were more plentiful, more easy to achieve, and more the standard meta. I think Fast Expo into Tier 2, Tier 3 is by far the most amazing and fun we've ever seen Warcraft 3. I think the Undead versus Human matchup is the best example and proof of this. For that reason, I think all expansion play should be made a bit easier by having expos be faster and cheaper.